I once died, and when I came back, my son had died in my place. Have you ever wondered if maybe you've already died once, but just don't remember? Have you ever asked yourself what happens in that space between when your heart stops and when you wake up again? If there's a place called in between, what would it even look like? The story I'm about to tell you isn't something I ever believed in. I've always been a practical man, the kind who preferred speed over stillness, engines over philosophy, the open road over church pews. My name is Daniel Parker. I'm 46, divorced, father of 2 boys. I work as a software engineer and run a computer repair shop in the suburbs of Pennsylvania. But what made me feel alive was my 2003 Harley Davidson. The roar of the engine like a wild animal, the wind slapping my face, that sense of freedom like I was some kind of god cruising the highway. I didn't believe in God, didn't believe in heaven, and definitely didn't buy into things like reincarnation or souls. For me, life and death were all there was. End of story. At least, that's what I used to think. My world revolved around work, motorcycles, black coffee with no sugar, and 2 boys. I swore I'd never abandon them the way my father had abandoned me. Everything ran like a machine. Until that night. It was a warm, fog-thick June night. I had just left a late gathering with my motorcycle club in Scranton, my stomach full of barbecue, my head still buzzing with laughter. The clock read 1:48 a.m. when I merged onto Route 6. A stretch of road I knew like the back of my hand. I wasn't speeding, no music, no thoughts, just the engine's steady hum like a second heartbeat. And then I saw him. An old, beat-up Ford, headlights flickering, was coming straight at me from the opposite lane. At first I thought I was seeing things. Maybe it was road work, maybe a drunk driver, maybe just a trick of the night. But the closer we got, the clearer it became. I saw the driver's face, pale and empty. His eyes wild with fear, his hands trembling on the wheel like someone who'd already lost control of everything. I swerved hard into the far lane, just in time. He wasn't as lucky. The old Ford slammed head-on into a limousine coming from the opposite direction. The sound of metal crashing echoed like thunder, followed by an explosion of fire that lit the night in a burst of red, casting a hellish glow over the fog. I stopped my bike and stood frozen, watching lives shatter like glass. In that moment, I wasn't the strong, unshakable Daniel anymore. I was just a man, shaking on the side of the road, feeling for the first time how fragile life truly is. They told me I didn't need to stay. The police arrived quickly. By morning, the news had spread everywhere. A 7-year-old girl and the limousine driver were both killed. The man driving the Ford was arrested, drunk behind the wheel. Maybe it should have ended there. I didn't want to get involved. But a year later, I was summoned as the key witness in court. They said my testimony could change the entire course of the case. So I went. I looked the man in the eye. He was just over 30, younger than me, with kids of his own. And I couldn't hate him. All I could think was, if I had been just a few seconds faster that night, maybe I would have been the one in the defendant's seat. I told the truth, and he was sentenced to 16 years for second-degree manslaughter. After the trial, I wasn't the same. I couldn't go back to work like before. I couldn't look at my son without seeing the face of that little girl. I sold the business to my partner, and I did something I had never dared to do before. I became a full-time father. I started cooking dinner. I took morning walks. I read books. I sat for hours, just watching my boys sleep. I began to slow down, to live more deliberately. But nothing warned me that I was inching closer to the edge of life and death than ever before. No premonitions, no dreams, just a normal summer day. A truck, a mistake, a collision. And then everything went dark. People have asked me since then, was it painful the moment you died? And I always answer, no, the moment itself wasn't painful, but what came after, that changed everything. I thought I had survived the crash, but in truth I had slipped into a place no map could trace, a strange, surreal realm I now call the space between here and there.
And it was there, in that impossible in-between place, that I came face to face with the truth about the soul. Do you dare follow me into that place? I still remember that afternoon clearly. The sky was clear, the sunlight golden like warm honey, one of those perfect days to get out of the city and breathe in a little freedom in a life full of rules. I was riding back from a roadside barbecue joint, the kind of tiny place you'd miss if you didn't already know it was there. The kind of place I loved was simple, smoky, filled with flavor and memories. My brand new Harley purred beneath me, heavy as steel, but I rode it like we were the same.
But then, traffic started to thicken, oddly. So, at first, I figured it was just the usual crowd heading to the lake. But it wasn't. There had been an accident ahead. The road was blocked. Cars stretched out in a line that seemed to have no end. The heat started getting to me. The sun, the stillness, the exhaust. It all pressed down like a weight. And then I saw it. A few cars pulled off onto the right shoulder, following a side path to escape the jam. After a moment's hesitation, I decided to do the same. I had no idea that just seconds later, fate would take a turn I could never have imagined. I had barely turned onto the small exit road when a large truck from the opposite lane was waved through by a well-meaning driver. The truck driver didn't see me, and I couldn't stop in time. The truck hit me head-on, full force, like a hammer slamming into steel. Everything shattered. Metal, bone, feeling. I don't remember the sound. I don't remember the impact. Just a sensation of emptiness. A deep, absolute nothingness, like someone had reached inside and flipped off the switch of existence. And then I woke up. But not in a hospital, not even on the ground. I woke up in the air. I looked down and saw the earth slowly drifting away. Trees, rooftops, cars, all shrinking below me like pieces in a miniature model. I couldn't see my body. I couldn't even feel myself flying. I was just drifting, light as smoke, quiet as the wind. A part of me felt fear, but another, one I can't quite explain, felt an overwhelming peace. No sound, no thoughts, just a knowing, a quiet, wordless knowing. I was no longer alive. And strangely, I didn't feel any regret. I saw a spiral of light ahead of me. Not blinding, not dazzling, just a soft, gentle glow, almost as if the afterlife didn't want to startle me. I moved toward it, not with my feet, not by will, but through something I don't even know how to name. As I drew closer, I recognized a familiar structure below. St. Vincent University Hospital, home to the region's top trauma unit. But I didn't enter through the front doors. I drifted right through the roof. I saw them working urgently. A respiratory doctor. A nurse is preparing blood. A CT tech is reading the scanner. And a man lying motionless on the gurney. His face was swollen. Blood was pouring from his mouth. His leg twisted at an unnatural angle. That man was me. I saw myself, but I wasn't afraid. Not at all. I felt no emotion, no tears, no screams, just a quiet detachment, as if I had stepped out of a torn, ruined coat and was now observing it one last time. Then I heard a whisper, faint but clear. "Hold on. You can still go back." But I didn't know how to hold on. And even if I could, did I want to? I drifted out of the trauma room, down the halls, through the walls. I moved without direction. And then I began to feel a pull. Not violent, not forceful, but steady. Something was calling me from far away, from deep within, from some space beyond time and language. And I knew I was entering the place between here and there. It was unlike anything you've ever imagined. No heaven, no hell, no clouds, no angels, just a realm entirely different. as if my consciousness was expanding, no longer confined by shape, language, or gravity. I had no eyes, yet I could see, no ears, yet I could hear, no body, yet I was unmistakably present. And in that moment, I realized the deepest, truest part of me had never died. That's when I began to see extraordinary things. Spaces shifting like liquid, beings that radiated their light. Some felt familiar, others completely unknown, but all of them were like me. A part of me wanted to ask, where am I? But somehow the question didn't matter anymore. I didn't know where I was going, who I would meet, or what I was about to learn, but I knew this. From this point forward, I would never again be the Daniel Parker I used to be. I thought I had died, but it turns out I was only beginning the real journey, because the place I had entered wasn't the end. It was a school, and I was about to learn the greatest lessons of all, about the soul, about truth, and about the purpose behind why any of us are ever born at all. I couldn't call that place heaven, and it wasn't hell either. It didn't resemble anything I'd ever read in the Bible or heard in the sermons preached by men in white robes. There were no golden gates, no trumpets, no judgment seat. And yet that place felt more real than anything I had ever known. It felt like a transit station between two worlds, a realm where the soul sheds its earthly dust, where you're no longer you, in the old sense of the word, but rather the distilled essence of something far greater. I found myself in what looked surprisingly like an office. Yes, an office, with desks, chairs, and light. And there were people, or rather, souls, interacting with one another. And I was working too. I was helping them solve problems. At first, they felt oddly similar to the kind of issues I deal with fixing computers. But over time, I began to see that no one really cared about the outcome. Everything played out like a kind of game.
The longer I observed, the more surreal it became. I realized the problems weren't about the software or the hardware. The real focus was on how each soul responded. Who got frustrated? Who became sad? Who stayed calm? Who gave up? And then it hit me. This place wasn't testing our skills. It was testing our awareness. One particular coworker kept appearing around me. At first, he was an older man with silver-streaked hair and piercing eyes. The next time, he appeared as an Asian woman, soft-spoken and serene. Then again, as a dark-skinned child with deep, ancient eyes. At first I was confused, then terrified. How was I supposed to recognize him through all these forms? But slowly, I stopped using my eyes. I began to feel his soul instead. I sensed his presence, his energy, a kind of vibrational signature that couldn't be mistaken. That's when I understood souls are real, and not just human souls. I could feel life pulsing through everything, through light, through stone, through trees, through flowing water. Everything had its frequency, but all of it resonated in harmony, part of the same living song. Life doesn't distinguish between forms, and the soul is never truly trapped inside flesh. We are all made from the same divine essence. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. People often ask me, how do you know it was real and not just a hallucination? And my answer is simple. Because in that place, I didn't need to believe. I just knew. In the same way, you don't need proof to know when you're in love. The same way a baby knows pain without having the words to describe it. It was a kind of knowing that didn't rely on language or logic. It came like a soft light moving through me, flooding me with truth. Truth my skeptical mind had never been equipped to hold. I was being taught something, but not through books. It was taught through presence, through something I can only describe as the language of the universe. It wasn't spoken. It was felt, vibration, pure intent. In that place, words didn't carry meaning. Energy did. I began to realize that even something as simple as, "I forgive you," didn't need to be spoken aloud. If it was truly present in your heart, it sent out a ripple that moved through everything. And that's when I understood every action, every thought, every feeling we carry sends out invisible waves. Nothing is isolated. Nothing is random. Everything is connected.
I also noticed something strange. There was no time. No clocks, no sunrise or sunset. Time didn't move. It stretched. It folded. And instead of measuring time in minutes, you felt it in levels of awareness. With each truth I grasped, I was pulled forward. The deeper my understanding, the farther I was taken. There were no teachers. Experience itself was the teacher. I was no longer a separate individual. I began to remember things I had never learned. I saw patterns of energy moving like sacred choreography. I understood truths that, in my old life, I would have laughed off as nonsense. But now, I didn't just believe I was part of it all, I knew I was. And just when I thought I had learned everything, a door opened. A new space welcomed me, one where everything I had just experienced was merely the introduction. A place where I wouldn't be shown others' souls, but my own. I thought I was learning about the nature of the soul, but in truth, I was about to confront my own. Every choice it had made, every wound it had carried, every moment I thought was long forgotten. The question is, could you face your past if there were no place left to hide? I don't remember anyone guiding me to that place. No gate swung open, no bells rang, no burst of light marked the threshold of something sacred. It came quietly, like a breath. As if I had crossed an invisible boundary, the space around me began to shift. It wasn't a physical place. It felt more like a mirror, but not one that reflected shape. It reflected memory. Not just what you did, but why you did it. Not just the words you said, but the emotions buried behind them. Some call it the life review, but don't imagine it like a movie reel playing your life on a screen. There's no theater, no audience. Just your awareness expanding so fully that you feel everything from every angle, through every person, in every depth. You don't just see your actions, you become the people you affect. You become the child you yelled at, the partner you abandoned, the stranger you coldly ignored. You feel their true emotions, the pain you never realized you caused, the disappointment you thought had long been forgotten, and even the small kindnesses you dismissed as meaningless, but that someone else carried with them for years. I saw myself on the day my son Nathan stood in the doorway of my office, red-eyed, saying, "Dad, I need to talk." I looked up from my computer, glanced at the clock, and sighed, "Now? Don't you know I have to work tomorrow?" I also noticed something strange. There was no time, no clocks, no sunrise or sunset. Time didn't move. It stretched. It folded. And instead of measuring time in minutes, you felt it in levels of awareness. With each truth I grasped, I was pulled forward. The deeper my understanding, the farther I was taken. There were no teachers. Experience itself was the teacher. I was no longer a separate individual. I began to remember things I had never learned. I saw patterns of energy moving like sacred choreography. I understood truths that, in my old life, I would have laughed off as nonsense. But now, I didn't just believe I was part of it all, I knew I was. And just when I thought I had learned everything, a door opened. A new space welcomed me, one where everything I had just experienced was merely the introduction. A place where I wouldn't be shown other souls, but my own. I thought I was learning about the nature of the soul. But in truth, I was about to confront my own. Every choice it had made, every wound it had carried, every moment I thought was long forgotten. The question is,
Could you face your past if there were no place left to hide? I don't remember anyone guiding me to that place. No gate swung open, no bells rang, no burst of light marked the threshold of something sacred. It came quietly, like a breath. As if I had crossed an invisible boundary, the space around me began to shift. It wasn't a physical place. It felt more like a mirror, but not one that reflected shape. It reflected memory. Not just what you did, but why you did it. Not just the words you said, but the emotions buried behind them. Some call it the life review, but don't imagine it like a movie reel playing your life on a screen. There's no theater, no audience. Just your awareness, expanding so fully that you feel everything from every angle, through every person, in every depth. You don't just see your actions. You become the people you affect. You become the child you yelled at, the partner you abandoned, the stranger you coldly ignored. You feel their true emotions, the pain you never realized you caused, the disappointment you thought had long been forgotten, and even the small kindnesses you dismissed as meaningless, but that someone else carried with them for years. I saw myself on the day my son Nathan stood in the doorway of my office, red-eyed, saying, "Dad, I need to talk." I looked up from my computer, glanced at the clock, and sighed, "Now? Don't you know I have to work tomorrow?"
I thought I was just tired. I thought I was just putting it off. But in that space, I became Nathan. I felt his heart tighten. I felt the thin thread of trust between us snap in a single breath. And I couldn't bear it. I broke down and wept. But crying didn't change anything, because in that place you can't go back. You can only face it completely. Those moments kept coming, relentlessly, tender, unfiltered. I saw myself lying to my mother, telling her I was fine while I was so addicted to caffeine and buried in stress that I could barely sleep. I saw myself saying, "I love you," without meaning it, just to hold on to a relationship that was already broken. I saw myself laughing at parties while silently drowning in emptiness no one could see. And then I saw the other side. Small gestures I had once thought meant nothing, now revealed to have created ripples of quiet beauty. A comforting handshake offered to a stranger at a funeral. A late-night message to an old friend on the verge of giving up. A single moment when I said to my son, "I'm proud of you," and years later he would recall it with a sparkle in his eyes. That's when I began to understand there is no such thing as a small act in the realm of the soul. Every choice leaves a mark. Every emotion spreads like a wave. And then, when you're ready, you see your life all over again, but this time from a higher level of awareness. I call it the advanced life review. It's like having once seen the world through ordinary eyes, but now you're given a spiritual microscope. What you once believed was right is suddenly revealed to have traces of subtle selfishness. What you once regretted now unveils a deeper lesson hidden beneath the pain. I saw every mistake I'd ever made, not to be judged, but to be understood. And each time I truly understood, not with my mind, but with my heart, something extraordinary happened. I felt lighter, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from my soul. A light appeared, a release washed over me, a kind of joy that didn't come from getting anything, but from becoming fully myself after everything. I call it bliss, a pure, unconditional joy. With no audience, no purpose, no prize, just the quiet, sacred truth of being whole again. Each time I made it through a painful memory, not by erasing it, but by embracing it with love and understanding, I was taken to a different level. The space around me would shift, the light would change tone, and then another wave of life review would begin, deeper, more refined, requiring greater courage. There was no applause, no judgment, just me and the higher version of me, waiting for me.
And I came to see something clearly. The greatest wounds of my life had been the very keys that opened the largest doors. I used to think loss had broken me, but now I understand it was through the cracks that the light was able to reach in. I don't know how long I was there, because time didn't exist, only growth did, only expansion. And just when I thought I had learned enough, when I believed I was finally ready to move on, I was brought into a new lesson. This time, it wasn't a reflection, it was practice. I was taken into a new space where I was asked to guide souls who had never lived a human life before. I didn't know why, I didn't know how, but I knew this. Everything I had just learned now had to be lived. I had once believed the life review was the end of the spiritual journey, but it turns out it was only the beginning. Because when you truly understand yourself, you were then called to help other souls take their first step into existence. And maybe, just maybe, you too were once guided like that before you were ever born. I don't know how I got there. No one led me. No door opened. But suddenly, I found myself standing in a space unlike any I'd seen before. It wasn't like the office I'd been in earlier, and it wasn't the familiar realm of light I had grown used to. This place felt more like a restaurant, or maybe a kind of training ground. There were tables and chairs, voices, movement, and surrounding me were young souls, restless, radiant, burning bright like flames untouched by the weight of the world. I didn't recognize any of them, but somehow I knew without a doubt that none of them had ever lived a human life before. These were primordial souls, blank slates, new, full of raw potential, and I had no idea why I had been chosen to guide them. At first, I resisted. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I had never taught anyone, never mentored a soul, and honestly, I wasn't even sure I had fully learned my lessons yet. But in that place, nothing operated according to logic. Everything moved according to the ripeness of awareness. I understood that this was a kind of test, not to prove something to someone else, but to reveal whether the truths I had discovered during my life review were now living inside me. I tried to teach them simple things about how to interact, how to live rightly, how to follow the laws of love and order, but they didn't listen. They nodded, they smiled, and then they walked away, as if they didn't care.
And I understood. This was the soul that once agreed to let a smaller part of itself step into the human experience, to become Daniel Parker, to learn, to feel, to remember what had been forgotten. We stood facing each other. No words were spoken, yet everything was understood. In the eyes of my higher self, I saw complete compassion, without a trace of judgment, a love that didn't come from sympathy, but from deep knowing. I remembered every mistake I had ever made, and yet that presence wasn't sad. It wasn't angry. It just radiated. And I understood. Every misstep had already been accounted for. Every wound had been permitted, not for punishment, but for learning. And I also understood, if I could face those trials with love, with awareness, then the experience wasn't just mine alone. It was the expansion of consciousness itself, a ripple in the vast unfolding of the universe. I don't know how much time passed, because there was no time, only presence. I only know this. I was asked, not in words, but in energy, "Do you want to go back?" And I didn't answer right away, not because I was afraid, but because I hadn't yet understood fully. I needed one more step, one final moment to truly grasp what awaited me at the edge of life. And when I was taken to that threshold, I never expected who I would see. Two old friends, long gone, sitting at a cafe table, like nothing had ever changed, as if they'd never left this world. I thought I had already met the deepest part of myself, but I hadn't realized two souls who had gone before me, two friends I thought I had lost, were waiting for me at the very end of this journey. Not to say goodbye, but to help me return and finish what I had left undone.
Would you be ready to take the next step if, on the other side of death, were the friends who had never truly left you? I don't remember when I left my higher self. I don't recall saying goodbye to the souls who had yet to be born. All I know is that on a clear afternoon, or rather in a moment without a name, I found myself sitting on a familiar patch of high ground. Locals in my hometown called it the Bluff. It's the highest point in the small town of Kings Park, where people gather at day's end, bringing coffee, a little whiskey hidden in red plastic cups, and, of course, endless stories. I sat there, and beside me were Joey and John, my two high school friends, two souls who had left this world years ago.
They didn't say anything profound. They were just there, like the old days, smiling, quiet, warm. We drank coffee together, watching the sunset roll in, and the strange thing was, the sun didn't fade. The lower it sank, the brighter it burned. The farther it dipped beneath the horizon, the more it blazed with light. I lifted my hand to shield my eyes. The light swallowed everything. A soft pop, like a bubble bursting in the breeze, and then movement slowed, like a sheer curtain being drawn. When I opened my eyes, I saw a ceiling, white, dim lights, that unmistakable smell of antiseptic in hospitals, and I felt a hand holding mine, gently, steadily, trembling. A voice cracked, almost a whisper, like it had been held in too long. "Daniel, you're here. You're gonna be okay. I'm right here, son." It was my father. I don't know how he made it in time, but that didn't matter. I was back, in a shattered body. Don't let anyone tell you that waking up is some miracle wrapped in light. It isn't. It hurts. A kind of pain that words don't reach. Every cell screamed, bones misaligned, nerves like thousands of tiny needles piercing through. I was immobilized, intubated, couldn't speak, couldn't move. Only my eyes were still working. And with every blink, a different face came into view. My mother. Kate, my longtime friend. The doctors. A young nurse whose eyes were always red. Everyone told me I'd be okay. I wasn't sure if they believed it or if they just needed to believe it for themselves. I spent weeks in the ICU, then months in rehab. I had to relearn everything: how to breathe, how to sit, how to stand, how to walk. Every movement was a battle, and through it all, Kate never left. She wasn't my wife, she wasn't an old flame. She was just a close friend, someone who used to hike with me, someone I used to argue with about politics and other nonsense. But she was also the one who stood at my bedside while I was in a coma, placing her hand gently on my chest and praying. I didn't hear her, but I felt it. It was the same energy I had sensed in that space between souls, the one that came from the woman in the corner who prayed without words, whose presence softened everything inside me. Maybe it was Kate, or maybe it was her, in a higher form. I couldn't speak then, but when I was finally lucid enough to be handed a phone, I typed a simple message. "I heard your prayer. Can you come?" And she came. She didn't say much. She just sat beside me, held my hand. No explanations, no proof. We both knew something profound had happened. Time passed. I healed, limping, sore, but rising. Not just physically. It was a kind of resurrection from the inside out. I started sharing my experience with Kate, not all at once, just pieces, fragments, and she never questioned me. She didn't laugh. She didn't ask for evidence. She just listened. And I knew that meant more than any validation ever could. The story could have ended there. A miracle, an awakening, a healed body, a second chance. But life is never that simple. One afternoon, while I was practicing walking along the rehab hallway, a nurse rushed toward me, wide-eyed, shaken. Then a doctor, then a police officer. I was discharged immediately, rushed home. No one would explain. But when the bedroom door opened, I knew. Nathan, my son, the son I had once turned away from when he needed me most, was lying still on the basement floor. One pill, one fake oxycodone laced with fentanyl, and just like that, he was gone. An honor student, a boy who loved math, a good big brother, a child who never had the chance to become a man. I collapsed to my knees, my heart, no, my soul shattered. I had survived, but for what, if my son had to die? What had I learned if I still couldn't save the one I loved most? There was no light in that moment, no faith, no philosophy could explain that kind of pain. Just a hollow, echoing emptiness so deep I could barely breathe. And the worst part? I began to doubt everything I had seen. Was that other world real? Or just a beautiful illusion of a dying brain? If God exists, how could he let my son die like that? I was no longer Daniel Parker of the afterlife. I was just a father in this world of loss, of graves, of questions no one answers. I had thought what I saw would be enough to hold me together. But when your child dies, you learn there are sorrows so vast, even the light falls silent. And yet, in that silence, something began to stir. Small, almost imperceptible, a signal, a whisper, a thread tugging from the other side of the veil. Have you ever received a sign from someone you've lost? A flower, a dream, a fleeting touch with no one there? If you have, don't brush it off, because what happened next to me began with something as small as a single fallen flower. I started seeing roses, in places where roses had no business being.
A single red bloom lies alone on a snow-covered trail in the middle of February. A dried petal tucked inside a pair of boots I hadn't touched all winter. A rose bush was growing wild by a stream where nothing had ever been planted. At first, I thought nothing of it. I assumed Kate had left them behind, a gentle, feminine way of offering comfort. But she denied it. She said she'd seen them too, in places she had visited alone, trails no one could have staged, petals appearing like whispers without sound. Then one day, Kate came to me holding a letter. It was from her cousin, who had recently visited a medium. The medium hadn't been told anything, not even a name, and yet she said, "There's someone named Nathan trying to get through. He's deeply connected to flowers, specifically roses, and to Saint Teresa." Her cousin immediately texted Kate, "Is Nathan Daniel's son? Have you been seeing roses?" I read that message and couldn't believe my eyes. Saint Teresa? I have never taught my son about her. We didn't go to church. Nathan wasn't raised with religion. But then Kate, with that glimmer in her eyes I couldn't look away from, reached into her bag and pulled out a small statue of Saint Teresa. She gently placed it beneath the tree where we used to rest during our hikes. Then she took a stone and a pen and wrote a short prayer on it. "Nathan, if you're still there, let your father know." She set the stone down beside the statue, said nothing else, and we walked back home. I still didn't believe, still doubted, but something inside me had begun to stir. A week later, Kate brought me a small card, a prayer card with an image of Saint Teresa that her cousin had received from the medium. She told me to look closely, and I did. I saw her birth date, January 2nd, Nathan's birthday. A chill ran through me. I told myself it was a coincidence, until my eyes moved lower. Canonization date, May 19th. The exact day my son died. How could that be? That night I curled up in bed, unable to sleep. My mind spun in loops of logic, dreams, faith, and resistance. I thought of the roses. I thought of Nathan's eyes. And when I finally drifted off, I saw him Not a regular dream. You know the kind I mean, the kind of dream that comes with a presence. There was no scenery, just a soft, misty light, and Nathan, his familiar smile, his shining eyes, walked toward me. He didn't speak with his mouth, but I heard him as clearly as if he had. "Dad, I'm okay. I'm learning just like you did, and I need you to let go." I cried in the dream, and when I woke up, my pillow was soaked with tears.
From that day on, I stopped trying to explain everything away. I began to remember the lessons I had learned in the space between, that all souls are connected, that every pain carries a lesson, and that no one truly dies. They only shift form. Eventually, the police caught the man who sold Nathan the fake pills, a 24-year-old addict, homeless, drifting between parks and shelters. He was charged with second-degree murder, the same charge given to the man in the crash all those years ago, the one I had testified against. And once again, I was asked to take the stand. For the second time in my life, I had to face the person responsible for the death of a child. But this time, the child was mine. I went to court burning with fury, a sea of unshed tears swelling in my chest. I wanted to scream at his face. I wanted him to feel what it was like to lose a son. I wanted him to collapse under the weight of his regret. But when I stepped into the courtroom, when my eyes met his, I didn't see a monster. I saw a lost boy, a soul crushed under the weight of darkness, a part of myself from a time when I too had drifted, numb, reckless, without guidance. And I couldn't be angry. What I felt was something I couldn't explain. Compassion. Not because he deserved it, but because I realized I couldn't hold on to rage and still hope to heal. I had been forgiven. I had been rescued. I had been shown the light. And now, it was my turn to forgive. The court sentenced him to 16 years, the same length as the sentence from the case all those years ago. A circle, quietly closed. No one called it justice, but I knew it was completion. Now, whenever I walk familiar paths, I still see roses. Maybe they're real, maybe they're a metaphor. But each petal reminds me, Nathan didn't leave. He only changed form. He simply moved on, to another classroom. And I, his father, am still learning, in my way. I once thought forgiveness was a gift I gave to others, but I've come to understand it's a gift I gave to my soul. Because only when I let go of the fire of anger could life, real life, finally find space to enter. After Nathan died, something inside me almost died with him. Every morning was a struggle just to get out of bed. I didn't know what I was waking up for anymore. There was no drive, no plans, no one to share my ridiculous motorcycle stories with, or to talk through math problems like we used to. Everything felt hollow.
And all I wanted was to go back to that place between here and there, where there was no pain, no loss, no separation. I was so consumed by the grief of losing Nathan, I forgot. I still had another son, Lucas. He was 16, and he had lost his brother too. But unlike me, he didn't have a spiritual experience to hold on to, no near-death memory to help make sense of death. All he had was me, the father he used to believe was steady and strong. And I wasn't there. I remember one evening, I was sitting on the porch, watching the rain fall endlessly. Lucas came outside. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there beside me for a while. Then he whispered, almost accidentally, "Dad, I know you loved Nathan a lot, but I'm still here." That sentence hit me like a blade straight to the chest. There was no anger in his voice, no blame, just a quiet reminder, one that broke me, that I was repeating the very thing I had once regretted most, not being present when my child needed me. I pulled Lucas into my arms, and for the first time in months, I cried not from grief, but for life, for what was still here. I apologized not because I meant to abandon him, but because I had forgotten that being a father isn't just about grieving the child you lost. It's about loving the one still standing in front of you. From that night on, I started seeing Lucas differently, not as the one left behind, but as a soul hurting, growing, trying to find his way through the dark. A boy who didn't need answers, just someone to walk beside him. I stopped trying to teach him. I stopped offering philosophies from the other side. I just showed up. I listened. I cooked meals with him. I ran alongside him. And now and then, when the silence stretched long enough, we both began to feel it. Nathan was there, not in body, but in every moment we truly shared. One day, Lucas asked me, "Dad, do you think Nathan knows I miss him?" I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Not only does he know, he's right here, in the way you speak, in the way you forgive, in the way you keep living, even with a heart that's been broken." I began to tell Lucas about the dream I had of seeing Nathan, about St. Teresa, about the roses. I wasn't afraid anymore that he'd think I was losing my mind, because I believe this now. Soul knows soul. And I saw the way Lucas's eyes welled up, as if maybe he too had received signs, but hadn't dared to believe them, hadn't known how to say it out loud. From that moment on, a new language began to form between us, one that didn't need words to be understood. I came to realize that Lucas didn't need a strong father. He needed a real one. And so I made the hardest choice of all, to keep living. Not to escape death, but to be fully present for the living. Now, every morning, I make coffee for two, one for me and one for Nathan. And then I pour a glass of milk for Lucas. We sit together, one seen, two unseen. But I know, with certainty, none of us is missing. I've started to believe that loss doesn't take our loved ones from us. It simply teaches us how to love them in a new way. And, more importantly, it teaches us to love those who remain, deeper, slower, more truthfully. I once thought I had lost a son, but now I understand grief doesn't erase love. It refines it. It taught me how to love the son who is still here with a depth I never knew I had. And maybe that's how Nathan lives on, not in absence, but in the love that continues instead of being cut off. Is there someone in your life right now who still needs your love while you still have time to give it? If there is, don't wait for another loss to find out. Because time, when lived from the heart, has the power to become eternal. I used to think I had to die to see the light, but now I know we don't have to die to truly live. I'm not telling you this story to convince you of anything. I'm telling you so you remember. Because somewhere deep inside you, beyond what time can dull, beyond what pain can harden, there is a part of you that still remembers you are a soul. Not just a body, not just a name, a job, a sadness, or a list of accomplishments. You are a piece of light sent into this world for one very specific reason: to learn how to love. That's what I learned from the other side of death. Not from books, not from spiritual teachers, but from experience. From standing in front of my higher self. From seeing every moment of my life rise like waves, layered over one another. From knowing that every look I ever gave, every word I ever spoke, every silence I ever held, it all had weight. It was all remembered, not by a wrathful God, but by the deepest part of my consciousness, vast, aware, and truer than any reflection I've ever seen in the mirror. I learned that every soul is being guided, even the lost ones, even the ones who've hurt others. Even I, a father who wasn't there when it mattered, a man who doubted everything,
a man who fell to his knees before his son's lifeless body with nothing left to hold on to. I learned that every wound carries a message, not to justify the pain, but to invite us to look deeper. No soul comes here for an easy life. We come to learn, to forget, then to remember, to break, then to grow. I learned that every ending is just another beginning. Death isn't a full stop, it's a pause, so the soul can step into a new chapter. And those we lose, they're not truly gone. They've just changed how they love us. They no longer reach for us with their hands, but with intuition. They no longer speak through words, but with signs. They no longer show up in body, but in moments that catch you off guard, make your throat tighten, your eyes well up, and you don't even know why. But your soul knows. It always has. I'm not a master. I'm not a preacher. I'm just someone who died and came back with a new heart. A heart that understands everyone is carrying something heavy. A heart that no longer needs to win arguments only to show up in truth. A heart that forgives, not to ease someone else's burden, but to finally set itself free. And what about you? If you've ever lost someone, please know this. They're still with you. Maybe in a dream, a scent, an old song is playing at just the right moment. A ray of sunlight slips through your window. Don't rush to dismiss it. Don't try to explain it away. Don't let the weight of the material world smother the whispers of your soul. If you've ever felt lost or meaningless, know this. Every breath you take sends ripples through the universe. No one is here by accident. Every soul has a reason to be, especially when you can't yet see what that reason is. If you've ever stood on the edge, unsure if you could go on, know this: you are not alone. Some souls walk beside you, holding space for you in silence, gently reminding you, don't give up. There is beauty still waiting. I came back in a body marked by scars, with a heart cracked wide open. But I live differently now. I see others as souls in human form. I slow down. I speak less. I touch more deeply. I begin each day not with anxiety, but with a simple question. How can I love today? And if you've made it this far, if something inside you stirred, a vague memory, a quiet familiarity, you might have seen what I've seen. You might not need to die to realize you're far more than you ever believed. If there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's this. Life is good. People are good. Even when very sad things happen. Those are just empty words until you walk the path yourself and discover the light was always there, waiting for you to remember. And now, I'd love to hear from you. If you've ever experienced something you couldn't explain, a dream, a sign, a quiet moment where you felt someone you lost was still near, I invite you to share it. Leave your story below. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be true. Because maybe, just maybe, your story is the light someone out there needs most right now. And maybe when you speak it, you'll finally see you were never truly alone.